I have a picture that I've kept on the wall of my office. It's of my great grandfather, James Carrington, and his wife, Emma Carrington. And this always hung over my grandmother's bed. And for me, it's really grounding and just reminds me of their story and how much they were loved by their family. And so I just love this photo of them together. It for me, it just um, it's very affirming. What we try to do is help people locate the documents they already have. And one thing I want to share with you today is, okay, that's great. The documents are at home. Um, do you know where they are? Do the important people who are responsible for carrying out your wishes know where they are? If you had an emergency, would you know what to grab and take with you? So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's really good to know that you know where they are. First of all, that's really important. So that's good.
We know where our documents are, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're in any order or anyone else knows. So how can we start?
Okay. Well, the first question I always want to ask is, great. So how to start? Often people are really overwhelmed when they think about handling their documents or photographs. They just put them to the side, they put them in the attic, in the basement, try to push them out of mind as much as possible because it just feels overwhelming and very time consuming. And so it doesn't have to be. The real question to start with both photos and documents is, why do you want to organize? And this is a time if you want to take yourself off of mute and maybe say, you know, what brought you here today? Is there something that you're concerned about with documents, or do you have a project with your photos that you want to share with friends and family?
I can start. And I can just say that when I got married, my mom took the time to arrange a bunch of photos in a box for me and my wife to have as a part of a wedding gift. And I remember looking through that box and being, you know, it was pictures from throughout my life and activities I did. And I thought that was such a cool experience to go through that. I want to do the same for my kids, of course, maybe not at that particular moment in their life, but with everything being digital, it's always a concern, you know, what happens if a hard drive goes, you know, that's full of photos, or if there's, you know, if accidental loss through to deletion and stuff like that, that, you know, potentially could be a problem for long-term plans like that.
That's a great point. That you know, it can be wanting to share the memories, but also preserve them. And for all of you out there who only have your photos in a digital format, the ones you really care about, it's a great idea to print them out. I've talked to people who work at digital reproduction companies and photo and framing stores, and often people come to them with a hard drive or some other storage format and say, can you help me? All my photos are on here, or all my photos are on this broken phone. What can I do? And it's heartbreaking when you can't get the photos off and they're just all lost. My brother took photos of our family home the day my mom moved, of the entire house and all of the measurement markers, you know, as we were growing up. And he opened his phone and he was going to save it. He thought he had set it aside on his desk and saved it, vacuumed, could not find it, went through the entire vacuum bag looking for that, couldn't find it. They're just gone. So that's a great suggestion. On the flip side, also a good idea to scan photos that are really important, hard copy photos that are really important to you, so that you can save those. The more formats and the more locations you can save things in, the better.
I have precious stuff I'm not using. I brought a sample, like you said. Let's make sure they're right side up. These are some college friends that I have that we've stayed in touch and done a number of get-togethers over the years. And if you're up close enough to see, some friends made it to some meetings, some not. You can watch, oh, that's late enough. You know, Laura was married, there's Josh. We see some kids growing up. So and a friend from that group gave that printout of her digital pics to us. It's sitting in a cupboard that I have of memories stuff, which I have a feeling the right frame, the right placement with the collage on a wall would really give me more enjoyment than knowing it's in a box in the cupboard.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely. and just taking the steps, small steps to help make that happen. Does anyone else have any want to share anything about why they joined us today?
While you work up the guts, one person emailed me ahead of time and said they have a really old precious photo in a frame in the attic, and they are concerned about what happens if they take it out of that big, huge frame.
Yeah, that raises a couple of different issues. One, preserving fragile photographs is really a wonderful thing to want to do. So I would suggest photographing it just in your home. Take a picture of it first, so that you've got a picture of it as it is. Then you might take it to a framing store or a photo store and ask them to scan it for you. That's probably the safest way. Sometimes you can safely get a photograph out of a large frame, depending on how it's framed, but sometimes they are really fragile. And, you know, if you tear it, then you're going to be not only scanning the photo, but having the digital reconstruction of the photo, which they can do, and they do a beautiful job now, but it's nice to be able to skip that step. I worked with a client who had every family photo. She really believed in sharing all of the family photos. And so her house was just covered with family photos. Every room had not only her family, you know, through the years, but also her ancestors back into the late 1800s. And they were really amazing photos. She treasured them, and she had me take pictures of all of them, so she could ask her kids, who a lot of them were out of town, if they wanted, you know, the photos, and she was going to send them all, you know, to whoever wanted them. Well, it turned out not that many of her children wanted the actual framed photos. They wanted the digital image, and what we sent to them was what they wanted. They didn't really want more than that. But she wanted to keep the photos. And so this gets to how will you use your documents? She really wanted, she was moving to assisted living, and she really wanted to be able to see them. And so we took them out of all the frames and made a very simple book where she could just slip those photos into archival sleeves in a big scrapbook. And we just did that with all of them. And so then she ended up with a really lovely scrapbook that had all of these family photos in them, that she could enjoy in her new home where there wasn't as much wall space. So it's always good, there are all different kinds of options for what you can do with photos. Yeah. Any other questions? Is there anything you've done that worked really well for you?
I was going to throw in there that I know lately, especially libraries have been getting a lot of large, expensive equipment for things like scanning in Cleveland, at least at the Cleveland Public Library. I think you have to make an appointment. I'm not 100% sure, but they have a large format scanner, high resolution scanner. So if you have a large image, like an old family photo or wedding photo from, parents or grandparents, they can often get that scan done for you at no charge. I think their only request is they can keep a copy of the file, which, for most people, that's not a big deal, but it's an option then for digitizing photos that might be precious.
Mhm. That's a terrific suggestion. The South Euclid Public Library has a diverse group of scanners, recorders, video recorders, all kinds of things. I won't name them all now, but that's a great place to go, and they will help you learn how to use the equipment so that you can do it. And especially if you have a lot of documents, that's a way to make a project of it and do that. So thank you. That's really helpful.
So with that, we know we don't have to buy a scanner, but Hillary, what other equipment, like you talked about a scrapbook with archival pages, talk to us about what we're looking for in physical frames, scrapbooks,
Okay.
scissors,
Okay.
thumb drives.
All right. Well, with photographs, let me start just quickly with documents, because most people, I don't want to lose any of you, but I do want to say a couple of things about documents before we move on and talk a lot about photographs. There are a lot of places that you can look online for documents and for what you need to keep. And my suggestion is you pull all of your important documents together in one place so you know where they are, and take a look at one of the online resources. Susie Orman, who does a lot of work on financial solutions for people, has a list of that's called Financial Clutter, what to keep and get rid of. And once you have all the documents together, it's a really good list to go through to look at what do I need to keep, like keeping forever, marriage license, birth certificates, wills, adoption papers, death certificates, records of mortgages, things like that. What you need to keep while it's active, like contracts, retirement plan information, what to keep for 7 years. Everyone knows your taxes, things like that. And what to keep for shorter periods of time. I won't go through the list of things, but it really helps you be able to let go of a lot of paper you don't need to keep. Marie Kondo, who is kind of a guru now of minimizing your possessions, says that everything you keep should scatter joy. And for her, papers don't scatter any joy. You should get rid of all of them and digitize everything. Well, you can't do that with everything. And I'm not completely in her camp, but a lot of times paper clutters our minds. And so I would use these lists to really show you, okay, if I've got something that's not on one of these lists and I know it's notes from a conference I went to 7 years ago that I've never looked at, maybe I can let it go now. Okay, so.
And some stuff is financially important for a very short period. If you're one who can't help but print the transfer confirmation when you move money from your checking account to pay toward your credit card, or your gas bill, receipt of payment, it's okay to keep that between making the transaction and then seeing the next bill that shows that there was a payment made.
Right.
But at that point, toss it, because then it becomes irrelevant and all that matters is the next month's cycle. And that I've gone through better and worse cycles of oh my gosh, if this is the confirmation from 6 months ago, it is so irrelevant because stuff has happened since then and it's not going to prove anything different.
Yeah.
So,
And I share this, and I thank you for your affirmation, Christy, because we've worked with clients who literally have had every single receipt and piece of paper that has ever come into their lives in their homes. And it stopped them from moving forward in their lives. It was their homes weren't safe. And they also were just so overwhelmed every day with just moving through their homes that you know, they really couldn't function as well as they could and think forward about their dreams and what they want to do. Most people aren't in that situation, but it's amazingly freeing to let go of a lot of this paper. It's a really good thing. So I would suggest looking at those document lists. There's another one called Too Much Paper Clutter, What to Keep and for How Long by a Clear Path. But you'll find lots of them. You can ask your accountant or your lawyer also. And it's a good way to find out, do you have the documents that you need to keep? And also giving you permission just to let go of them. So that's all I'm going to say right now about documents. But if you want to ask questions, please do, because a lot of times people have some anxiety about documents. Photos. So I would start the same way with photos. Ask why you want to share them. How do you want to share them? That makes a big difference. So photos, thinking about who do you want to share the photos with? Why do you want to share them? Do that as you're bringing them all into one place. That's where I would start. Gather the photos from the attic, the ones you've kept, you know, stuck on your refrigerator, the ones at the back of the cabinet that where you cleaned things off when you were having company, the ones on the coffee table that you share with everyone. Bring them all together and take and keep them when you do bring them together. If they are in envelopes, boxes, other containment devices, keep them all together. Keep them in those, because a lot of times that will tell you how, like what the event was, the timing. Sometimes people have notes and things like that. It'll help you identify the people and, you know, whatever, and maybe tell the story behind the photos too. I was wondering, did any of you pull out a photo that meant something to you that you'd want to share with the group? Oh, cool.
Oh, it's still, I got to get rid of my
for,
back.
for 1 minute there, Tim, it looks like you are in your life preserver vest in the canoe.
If you hold it right in front, oh, okay.
There we go.
Oh, wow.
That's one of my, I've had 3 dogs. Well, technically the one we have now is my daughter's, but we're pals. But that was the dog, my first kid, if you will.
Oh. Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. I have a picture that I've kept on the wall of my office. It's of my great grandfather, James Carrington, and his wife, Emma Carrington. And this always hung over my grandmother's bed. And for me, it's really grounding and just reminds me of their story and how much they were loved by their family. And so I just love this photo of them together. For me, it just, it's very affirming, you know, it makes me feel good about myself. And so I love having it in my office. And it also reminds me of my grandma, you know. And so I don't know if any of you, you know, just want to raise your hand if you have pictures like that that mean a lot to you. Yeah.
That's good. I see some raised hands. If
Yeah.
any of you are on a phone or a tablet and want to carry us around your house and show us something on your wall, we would love to see it.
Yay.
I have actually seeing that photo reminds me, Hillary, one of my best successes. I didn't even treat myself to, I did it for my mom, but there was a photo of my grandparents' wedding with my grandpa in World War II uniform. And I had it printed on a ceramic plate
Oh.
with that image, and that made it to her curio cabinet. And
Betty
it
Young
was,
has a picture if you look in the grid of pictures
Yeah.
there. Betty, you're on mute if you're trying to talk, but she's got some family photos looks like there.
Top two are my great grandparents, and then this is my husband's grandparents. And for all those that you know, Jake Young, this is the original Jake Young and his wife Amelia. And then this is my dad's family and my grandparents' wedding pictures. And it's just some, I have a lot more and bigger frames down the basement,
Yeah.
on the walls, a dry basement.
Yay.
I
There you go.
love how the generations are in that ladder format. That's a cool idea.
Well, it's just that we had downsized about 4 years ago, and the smaller wall space, you have to figure out a different way to display them all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful creative idea. Oh, I see Donna has a photo here too.
Because the relation,
Double jeopardy.
I can't see them. Okay. Well, this is Dawn. These are my grandparents and the family, my father's family.
Got it.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Do you know where it was taken?
No, I don't, but it's in the early 19, well, probably 1920, somewhere in there.
Were there 6 children there? Did I see all of them?
They had 10 children, but
Yeah.
several died during the flu in 1918.
Oh,
And they all went back to Italy.
yeah. So that tells another story. That tells
Mhm.
another story, a harder story. Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. A wonderful thing about pulling all the, oh, Sharon.
I'll let you unmute yourself because when I try to do it, then we fight each other.
Oh, Sharon, I think she froze.
This
Your
is
internet
my
froze.
grandfather.
Oh,
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Really, those cherished photos are the ones, you see the movies and people, are packing up their one suitcase to immigrate or go to war or start off on some new adventure. And they have that one photograph and they put it in their suitcase and take it with them. That photo reminds me, a lot of these photos remind me of that one photograph that's so important. Yeah, and it's wonderful that you're sharing them. Thank you.
I was just going to add, about 10 years ago, I made copies of all these great grandparents' pictures and grandparents' pictures and all of those, and had copies one Christmas made for all of the nieces and nephews and gave everyone with the Ellis Island records and everything. I mean, none of them were interested at the time, but I did say, years from now, when you get an interest in it, this will be a good start. Just share whatever else you find with the rest of your cousins.
Yeah.
So.
Betty, that's a great point because I think
amazing
the same thing happened to us as we weren't all interested when my mom put the boxes together for us with that information. But then years later, looking back at it, it triggers the want to know more and to learn the family history.
Yeah.
And when great nieces or nephews call me and say, I need some information because I have to do a school project, I say, start with your mom or dad has a box, go through that, and then call and whatever I can fill in, I will.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm going to say is that what I'm in the process of still doing for my kids, I'm 60, almost 67 years old, so my kids are in their 30s. And when we took pictures of them growing up on holidays and everything, I always put them into albums, but there's so many of them because it wasn't digital, and you had to take that whole 24 pictures, and a lot of times you had an extra set made. I'm taking apart those albums and putting like one good picture of their first Christmas, one good to each of them. And all these extras, hundreds and hundreds of extra photos, I'm just putting in a box, but each of the 3 kids have an album that has their whole life in it with them, instead of when they sit down to look through it, there's 50 pictures of the holiday. Well, they don't want to look through 50 pictures of every holiday to get through 1 year. So I don't know if will help anyone.
Betty, I think that's a really beautiful idea, and it's great that you've actually done it.
Not finished, but started.
Well, that's starting
That's
is
what overwhelms
100%
most of us.
starting is 100%. That's great. My husband's mother had 7 children, and when they graduated from high school, each of them she made a book for that had all of their birth information, their christening, their little certificates, everything from school, their report cards, pictures, and she gave each of them the book, and so they had their own story. They still had a lot of pictures, just as you are, but having that book for them, it was an incredible gift. So it's wonderful what you're doing. I think they're going to really appreciate it. I know my husband does. That's a really wonderful example of how you can share your photos. And all of you have done so many creative things to be able to share them, to keep the people present, the stories present. That's really so much of it. So when you're collecting all of your pictures in one place, there are a couple ways to think about this. You want to do it digitally as well as physically if you have digital photos. A lot of times people have photos on their phones, on their iPads, on their computers. Bring them all into one place and then back them up in a couple of different places. And maybe give one copy of the backup to someone who doesn't live in your home, so that if something happens, there's another copy somewhere, okay? With printed prints in their original condition, you also want to make sure that they're kept in a cool, dry place, not in the attic and not in the basement. Even if the basement is dry, a lot of times just over time, moisture gets in because it's so cool and damp. And so you want to keep them someplace where they're really safe. And when they're also in the boxes, they should be in a clean, dry box, ideally in an archival box. You can get those at Michael's or Joann's, or you can order them online. Or
Are they labeled like that?
Pardon me?
The archival? Are they like, I've never tried to shop for one. So how does that differ from the Rubbermaid tote that holds my sweaters in the off season?
Yeah, no, an archival box will be a paper.
Don't laugh at me, Tim.
It'll be cardboard. It'll be a cardboard box, but it's archival quality. It's acid free, so it won't contribute to the yellowing or deterioration of the chemicals in the photo. And so that's why that's important. But just keeping them, if you don't want to go to that extreme, because you say, well, I've still got photos from 100 years ago and they're in a shoebox and they're fine. You just want to keep them in that shoebox, keep them in a safe place that's cool and dry. And so that'll work. And then choose your method of organization. And for people, it will be different. Betty talked about looking at all of the Christmas photos. And so maybe you're organizing by event. Sometimes people organize by person. If you're having a or by couple. Say someone is having a 75th wedding anniversary. Maybe you're pulling all of the pictures of them and their family together, and their grandchildren probably, and maybe great-grandchildren together for that event. Sometimes people order everything chronologically, but that's really something to think about. I've got a box here of, you know, you can see, you can find these almost anywhere. You know, the Container Store, but again, this is paper, it's not plastic. You want to avoid plastic boxes of any kind. Why? You're muted, but I can see that. Why? Because if moisture does get in, unless it's really sealed, if moisture does get in, there's more of a chance of bacteria or mold growing in the box, you know, and so that's why you want to be careful. And so I've got pictures of dogs, lots of pictures of dogs, more pictures of dogs in this box. Sometimes as you're going through and you've collected all of your pictures, you'll realize you've got themes. I've got lots of holiday photos. And so I've clipped these all together. I also have lots of duplicates. So when you look at that pile of that you've created, and for some people, it's going to cover a dining room table, maybe more of photos. Start looking for duplicates. The ones that are important, I set aside because I can give them to someone else. The other ones that are just multiple copies of a tree that I liked for some reason, I set those aside. So I was talking about chronology before. In here, there are all kinds of events, and they're all just in chronological order. And they're the ones that didn't make the cut for my scrapbooks or books, but they're really good photos that mean a lot, and I didn't want to get rid of them. So when you talk about the ABCs of photos, you want to look at what do you want to archive? And archive can mean keeping to put on your wall in a scrapbook, to share with your children, to keep, even if it's in a box like this, you're like, you know what, I'm going to do it one step at a time. I'm just going to organize them chronologically or by subject or person. And that's all I can do right now. Maybe next year I'll start to create something else with all of these photos, but this is what I'm going to do now. So you gather them all together, you pull out the duplicates, you pull out the bad photos, the ones, you know, with the thumb in the middle, or you can't remember why you took the photo. You know, they're someone's shoe, you know, all of those. You pull those out and you can safely toss those. But the ones that you think might be helpful to you in the future, or you might be able to give them away as duplicates, I would say hang on to those. Often I'll put them in Christmas cards and share them with people that way, because people don't print off photos as much as they did. And it really sparks a conversation. A lot of times I'll get a call from an old friend who'll say, you know, how glad they were to see that photo. It reminded them of, you know, a time we had together. It's a really great way to connect, reconnect with people, especially now that we're a little isolated. So it's good excuse to pick up the phone. And so, you know, here's I could show you all kinds of pictures, and that's the thing. You know, that was my prom photo that I snuck back in there. But you might want to, you know, just think about what those options are for you as you go through them. You'll get ideas. And then the story. And we've talked about this already, and you guys have shared your stories, but what's the story that you want to share? So when you have the photos, and it's so important to remember to label them. You can use a number 2 pencil on the back of a photo to label them. And I really strongly suggest that you write the name, the year, if you know the year, the event, and the name of the person on the photo. So important. I have photos that were my grandmother's, and because she had so many photos and some of them were in scrapbooks and labeled, I'm able to identify people. But a lot of them, she didn't write the names of people because they were her friends. They were people she saw all the time and didn't think about it. So label the photos. And another way to share photos too, especially if you have a lot of family history photos, if you're online and feel comfortable doing it on Family Search, on Ancestry, it's a wonderful way to share photos and also label them so other members of your family can easily find them and share them. A lot of times, you've got a picture of your great grandparent and their siblings. And so when they're looking for their family history, they might be able to tell you more stories sparked by seeing that picture of their grandmother next to your grandmother. So that's something to think about too. There are lots of different ways to share photos. And I don't know if any of you'd like to share what you've done, whether it's online or in person.
I was going to say that Gmail, if you have an account, they're free, and if you're interested, they have they have their Google Photos, but they also have a Google Drive, and all this is free, and you can get up to, I think it's 2 gigabytes of space with just for free. It usually comes with a Google phone too, that you can back up all your photos from your phone automatically to to one of these locations. That eats up space a lot, but I have a lot of a section on my Google Drive that just has important photos about me or my family, separated. And those are ones, as you described, where I'd pick them out of the massive amounts of photos, digital photos, because you can just click away and keep it there, so that one day if something happens to me or I find the time to sit down and really organize them, I can, they're all in one location and
Yeah,
can do that.
that's a fantastic way to do it. On the Mac platform, you can share through iPhoto, through iCloud. Works the same way, and you can give permission to people so you don't feel like anyone can see. You can specifically give permission for your photos. Something that I did, and this is just a little warning, I decided that I was going to get rid of all the digital duplicates that I had. And I spent a couple of days going through and getting rid of, the 4 of the 5 pictures of my dog sitting on a,
Yep.
carpet, sitting on a chair, sitting on, literally like a couple thousand photos. And I know people with grandchildren have a lot of pictures of grandchildren. Those are harder probably than my dog to get rid of. But I spent a lot of time doing it. I had 3,500 photos that I had deleted. And I was so excited. Then I went to my phone and the photos were still on my phone. And I thought that it would be my phone is a little bit older. And so I thought it would be an easy thing for them to be deleted because, it wasn't adding to the memory on my phone, but not knowing that the phone actually has to process all of that when it deletes them. So I actually had to delete some photos from my phone to be able for the iCloud cycle to delete them all from the computer. So
That's good to know.
yes. So one thing
It's
I would
also,
suggest is update before you do a big project like that. Make sure that your phone, your computer, they're all up to date. They've all got the most recent updates so that they can sync properly. And maybe, delete a little bit as you go. Don't do it all at once because sometimes it's just more than, your technology can handle. I'm sorry, Christy.
I'm going to bring it back, but my best success with digital has been on my phone periodically to scroll back a little bit. So at first you're on vacation and every glimpse of that beautiful horizon with the mountain on it you get, you're like, we don't have mountains in Ohio. I am drinking this in, and you've got 500 photos. And to challenge yourself a little bit with that, get home and this one caught it in the best light, or, you know, and whittle it down a bit. And then there are the photos that are completely utilitarian. You're, you know, need to replace your windshield wipers. So you take a photo of the box the last ones are getting trashed in. So you can be like me and know nothing about this and show them at the store, and they go, oh, you need these sizes. And you go, thanks. That's really helpful for, you know, all of 2 days, and then make sure it's not hogging my digital space.
Right. One thing that I started doing after I did my big delete was, and I've done a big delete more than once because you just have a lot of photos. I take clients of photos home, so I have a lot of client photos. I pull things off. The utilitarian photos, once I've used them, I pull them off, and if I need to save them, I save them on a folder on my hard drive, not mixed in with my other pictures. So I can enjoy my other pictures, because a lot of the photo management programs that just come with our computers, you know, that are part of our day-to-day life now, they have beautiful programs that will create photo collages. You can search, even if my dogs are corgis. And so even if I search for corgis on my computer, it will pull up all the pictures of my dogs. Not all, it's not perfect, but most of the pictures of my dogs. And so it's really nice to be able to have that, to be able to look through your timeline and see pictures of all the good memories, not, you know, a copy of the receipt that you wanted to take to the store with you, or something that needed to be repaired. And so things like that. And so those I just pull off and save on my hard drive. And every once in a while I go through that and throw out the things that, you know, I don't need to keep. And so that's a way of making looking at your photos more enjoyable too. Something that can make it more fun is to do it just a little bit at a time. And so if you have them, you know, you can on your phone, you can do it on your phone. If you have a lot of boxed photos, you know, you can do it while you watch TV, listen to music, maybe while you're catching up with a friend on the phone. It's a nice thing to do. I worked with a couple who they were downsizing. And so while in the evening, they would just go through papers and photos. And they really made a huge headway going through all of those. And while they were doing it, they were also sharing memories. So it was a really nice thing for them. So that's my biggest advice. Do a little bit of a party online. You can ask people to join you on a Zoom call. Try it. It's not really hard. Try it, and share your photos online and talk to each other while you're doing it. A lot of people have tried this. Especially over the holidays, to be able to get together with family they couldn't travel to see. And so you've got a little practice. And so just share your photos there. A lot of times too, you'll find that people have the same photos. So maybe you don't need to save all those photos. They already have them. And, you know, sharing your stories, reaching out, asking someone in your family if they would like to make this a project with you. And, you know, get together. It can be a great thing to do with a grandchild. It can be a wonderful thing to do with an old friend who's come to visit. You know, it can really make, you know, some new special memories. So
I would also say, like, my mom passed away a year or so ago, and in the run up to the funeral, we spent a lot of time going through old photos, and it brought back wonderful memories. But my siblings had commented we should do this when there's not a reason, you know, to create
Our family
event
too.
around
yeah.
that too. So that we're not, in a moment of sadness, but just for the heck of it, and going through a lot of old photos. I grew up in the 80s, so I found a lot of incriminating photos of my siblings, which was fantastic. I
And
used
myself.
time to time.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's a wonderful excuse. It's a wonderful excuse. So I think, it seems like we're going to be, maybe isolated a little bit for a little longer. So these are some fun things to try, even if you're on the phone and talking and saying, do you remember when? I've got a couple of these photos. Would you like me to mail you one? Would you like me to send you one, or email? Take a picture of a photo and email it. It's an easy thing to do. A friend of mine's mother wasn't doing well, and I took some pictures of us all when we were kids together at Girl Scout camp. Her mom was a troop leader, and she just loved those pictures, and was able to share them with her mom, and it really gave her a boost, to remember some fun times. So something to think about. So I don't know if you want to share some things that have been helpful, or if you have some last minute questions as we wrap up.
Ooh, somebody just in the chat room said, are there any apps you recommend to help organize photos?
Yes.
I think you were starting to get on that with Apple iCloud and the Google Dropbox. Keep talking to us.
Yeah, I would start simple with all of these things. And someone asked, where do I get things? What do I need to store things? I always start simple. Often by the time you've gone through all of your photos, you already have the physical things that you need to organize them. If you're working with things online, start simple. Start with Apple iPhotos. Start with whatever system is on your, whether it's Dropbox or Google. Start with that. Go really, really simple and focus on deleting the photos that you don't need. It's always, I think it's an American thing to buy something to organize things. And so often just letting go of the things you don't need is just the best organizational step that you can take. I do like these boxes, and you can get these at Michael's, and the same thing online. If you're organizing, you can set up albums and organize them, either by date or person, event, and you can include those items in the description of the photo too. Just be consistent with the way that you do it, so that you can pick up everything by date. Usually the computer will do that for you, but if you're doing it by name, just be consistent about how you name people. If there are people who are married, pick if you use all three names, which helps a lot, because the computer, you'll be able to sort whichever name you choose. And if you're going to use nicknames, use the nickname consistently, things like that. And that helps a lot. It's amazing how much these computer programs can do for you. There's also facial recognition. And if you feel comfortable going with that, you can use facial recognition. Once you've identified a person, it can usually find the person throughout their life. Sometimes you have to go back and identify them as a child as well, because their face has changed so much. Or it's a man, and he's a little heavier and has a beard, after he's in his 30s, but was a skinny kid when he was young, and obviously had no facial hair. So things like that you need to look for. But I would play around with those. You can save a lot of money and a lot of time just staying simple. Yeah.
Other questions?
I'm happy to help or answer any questions afterwards. I think my telephone number was on the introductory information, but if you've got questions, you're welcome to call. The most important thing to do is just start and, you know, spend 15 minutes just going through, even just finding the photos. Start and share and make it fun.